Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbes, and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live. And with me this evening, we have the Minister of Justice, Mr. Dennis Richardson. And Minister, welcome to the program this evening. How are you doing?
Good evening, Oral. It is good to be back again. Once in a while, we get together and talk on television and try to get our people informed as to the developments, at least in my areas of responsibility. I think that's a good thing, Oral. Thanks for inviting me again.
And thank you for taking the invitation.
Yeah.
There's so many things happening on Simrat these days, from integrity to timeshare problems. Let me first start on the timeshare issue, because this is a very serious problem where you have many people in the United States are very upset. They're angry at St. Maarten. They're angry at the government of St. Maarten. They feel that the government of St. Maarten is not really paying much attention to their problems. How do you feel about it?
Well, you see, the timeshare concept is an American concept. It is really strange to the Dutch law system. The civil code, as we know it, is from the Dutch, and it doesn't really has the timeshare concept in it. We have lease, we have rent, we have long lease, those kind of things. But we don't have the timeshare definition in our law as it is. And timeshare is in the American system practical ownership for a certain time slot at in a certain place. And yeah, once you own something, if you own a bottle or whatever, it's yours. Nobody can take it away from you just like that. But in fact, in our system, many of the agreements that the timeshare is more a kind of a rental. In our Dutch system, a rental. So when they go to courts here and they lose, they don't understand what has happened and feel that the government should have protected them in accordance with the kind of timeshare concepts that are prevalent in the United States of America. In view of that, initiative law was started in the Parliament of St. Maarten. Member of Parliament Leroy de Weaver was the initiative person in that regard, to develop a timeshare law that would be similar to what is in the United States of America. Now the establishment of that law ran into a snag on the issue of language. The Council of Advice rightfully pointed out that as far as drafting laws in English is concerned, we don't have a system for that as yet. We don't have no rules and regulations like we have for drafting laws in the Dutch language, and therefore that should be done to prevent confusion in the future. In the last debate that we had around the budget in Parliament, you might remember that I stated that could be the case, but given the importance of timeshare for St. Maarten, the image of St. Maarten, the need for a certain amount of protection for the persons who have units in timeshare, I think that should prevail above the fact that we might be lacking in some aspects as far as rules, regulations, and all those kind of things is concerned, and we should go ahead, proceed, and establish the law.
So currently we have more or less, as you mentioned, a contractual agreement between the developer and the timeshare owner. But in some part of the United States, they have deeded property where you can purchase timeshare, you get a deed, etc. Do you see that possibility for St. Maarten?
Well, in principle, everything is possible to be regulated according to the law. What I said is until now that was not the case. And with the draft timeshare law, there's a step in the right direction to try and regulate it more in accordance with how it is done in the United States and how they perceive it in the United States of America. But the real professional, knowledgeable person in that regard on St. Maarten is Dr. Neil Dardijn, whose doctorate, whose promotion was based really on the study of the timeshare law and also its comparison to the Dutch system. I would recommend, if you have not done it already, Oral, to invite her one evening to discuss this matter and try and explain it more better than I can, how it fits together.
We taped with her, and it will be aired this coming Sunday on Speaking of Everything, so people will get a chance to hear her.
Beautiful, beautiful, yeah.
So, at least you could say as Minister of Justice, people in the United States shouldn't have to worry about the government of St. Maarten and not caring that the government of St. Maarten, you will say, do care about.
The government of St. Maarten do care about it. What they don't understand is that because of the problem that exists is that the government doesn't have a system to intervene. According to our law, like I say, it's civil law. You sign an agreement with me, you don't agree with me, we have a row about it, we go to courts.
Yeah.
Government does not intervene.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. I'm sorry about that, Oral.
It's all right with live TV.
You forget sometimes what to turn off these things. They become a second nature. Yeah, but it's a contractual agreement. So if you have a problem, you go to courts. What happens then is that the courts applies Dutch law and the Dutch law system, because timeshare is not regulated as it is regulated in the United States of America. But I think it is the responsibility of government, if the way it is regulated, the way it is done under our laws, forms a threat for that part of the industry and for the image of the country, then we need to step up to the plate and do something about it.
I know Parliament will be handling that law soon. You think we'll get through before the end of this year with that?
Oh, definitely, that should be a possibility. It has been a fast stage. The Council of Advice has brought out their advice. I recommended to Parliament that in as far as the Council of Advice has made contextual observations, they should be dealt with. It is as a part of good governance that you follow the advice of the Council of Advice unless you have reasons to deviate from it, and then you have to put those reasons, as it were, to paper so that it is understood why one deviates from that advice.
Now, you were recently in the Netherlands, right?
Correct. I was there for a whole week. We had a whole week of consultations in the course of the 4 justice ministers, Aruba, Curaçao, the Netherlands, and St. Maarten. We have every half year, we have a joint meeting in which we discuss issues in the justice chain.
No, I understand the French and Dutch government is looking at a radar for St. Maarten.
That would be a great thing. St. Maarten have constantly asked for a coast radar like they have Aruba, Curaçao. Every time we get a story, it is too expensive. It can't be done. Now we've understood that the French were considering putting a radar for the French side. So if that is the case, what would be better than France and the Netherlands coming together and doing a joint project in that regard?
Have they involved you as Minister of Justice in any kind of talks?
Not as yet. In fact, I believe the Dutch government has taken a wait-and-see attitude towards this and say, well, let's see what the French do, and then we will see if we can join. I would appreciate more if they were to take a more proactive step and go and talk to the French and say, well, let's sit down and work out a joint operation as far as concerned, involves in the Minister of Justice of St. Maarten as well, and then move forward jointly on this whole matter.
On the matter of integrity, there have been some, 2 or 3 reports. Now the Dutch government is insisting that they be in control of appointments of persons to this integrity board or committee. How do you feel about it?
Well, my position is very clear as far as I'm concerned. We agree, St. Maarten agrees, I agree with the Dutch government when they say the integrity chamber, because that's the debate about, should be an independent body, and the political influence should be eliminated as much as possible. Otherwise, they would not be able to do their job. In the draft law that we have in the process of establishing, and mind you, we are establishing that draft law based on a recommendation of our own Whit-Sampson Investigative Committee on Integrity for St. Maarten. And don't forget, the Dutch said we couldn't investigate ourselves. Then my question is, how come then that they choose exactly the one recommendation from the one committee that they didn't have any confidence in? You know, that is. But the point is, it seems as if they want control of the integrity chamber. And then my question to them is, but hey, you guys are also political. You intervened in the democratic process in St. Maarten when you came to the conclusion that the development that you see was happening, you didn't like. There was no justification for it, in the sense before, when a coalition was being formed earlier, you didn't intervene. When this coalition was being formed, you intervened. You didn't justify it to anybody, and you intervened. So it's also a political intervention. So you're not very neutral yourself as far as that is concerned. And by the way, I don't believe in lily white souls of the Dutch. They're just human beings like everybody else. So when it comes to politics, if we want to eliminate the political influence of St. Maarten, I don't have no problem with that, but I also want to eliminate the political influence of the Dutch, because they're not part of our community. They're at a great distance from us, and there's no control as to what they do or will not do as far as St. Maarten is concerned. And we have drafted a law that eliminates political influence of the investigations, political influence of the integrity chamber itself. In fact, the only organ, the only body that can appoint, a political body that can appoint a member to the supervisory board of the integrity chamber is what we propose in our law, which is the Kingdom Council of Ministers. And that is a political organization, but a political organization in which there are 15 ministers and 3 ministers plenipotentiary representing Aruba, Curacao, and St. Maarten.
No, St. Maarten is part of the kingdom, which is made up of St. Maarten, Aruba, Bonaire, Aruba, St. Maarten, Aruba, Curacao, and the Netherlands.
Yes.
But correct me here, if there is changes to be made or measures to be brought on a kingdom partner, in this case, St. Maarten, Curacao, or Aruba, now we're speaking about the integrity chamber. Is it okay? Is it legal for the Dutch government to unilaterally enforce this, or do they need the approval of the other kingdom partners, in this case, Aruba and Curacao?
Well, they don't need the approval in that sense. You see, this is being done under the name of the Kingdom Council of Ministers. And the Kingdom Council of Ministers exists of the Dutch ministers and the ministers plenipotentiary of Aruba, Curacao, and St. Maarten. Now, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Maarten, 3 votes. Yeah. The others have 15 votes. So you understand that our role when it comes to voting, we can be eliminated with a shrug of the shoulder. We could be ignored, and that has happened. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen when instructions were being given to the governors, and when Aruba, Curacao, and St. Maarten protested, we were just ignored, or just ruled out of it. So the power within the Kingdom Council of Ministers rests clearly by the Dutch government. So that is it. But there are rules about applying that power. Article 51 is an article of higher supervision, really. And the higher supervision should and can only be imposed if the country itself does not do anything, or does not do anything sufficiently to deal with whatever shortcomings there might be. But how can you say that about St. Maarten in this specific case, when St. Maarten is busy establishing a law in accordance with the recommendations that was given by the independent committee in this regard? How can you say St. Maarten is doing the shortcoming when you, with this kingdom measure, is trying to do exact the same thing that St. Maarten is doing? So there's no way that you can prove or motivate that St. Maarten is not doing what it's supposed to do. But now comes the twist. They say, yes, but we don't have no confidence in you. We don't have no confidence in you. At one point it was stated, your parliament has the end decision making in these cases. It's not true. It's not true. It's just blatant misinformation, manipulation of the information, so that people will believe, yeah, well, if that's the case, you're right. But it's not right. That is why we've done something out of the ordinary, and I say extraordinary times request extraordinary measures. We've made the law, the draft law, which is usually only made public after you have received the advice from the Council of Advice. We've made the draft law public. so that the journalists and the public and whoever themselves can see that St. Maarten has drafted a very good law and something that is unique in the kingdom. There's no other place in the kingdom that is going to have a hazard integrity chamber. It has never done before, not in Holland, not in Aruba, not in Curacao, nowhere within the kingdom. Still, St. Maarten has come up with a draft law that in quality exceeds the draft kingdom measure that, that has been drafted by the Netherlands. Even Minister Plasterk himself admits that in an interview in the Antilliaanse Dagblad, I believe past Saturday in Curacao. So what is your problem with St. Maarten? What it is you want? And that is a riddle for all of us here in St. Maarten, the government. Say, what are the Dutch, what are the real intentions of the Dutch as far as we're concerned? We don't seem to understand what it's about.
Let's go back and take a look at history, because I think at times history is very important. There was a time we had the Poirier report.
Yep.
And back in the 90s, when higher supervision was imposed on St. Maarten, the person that came in at the time, you was...
I came in later, yes,
right,
in 1994.
And you look back now, what, 21 years now? It's 21 years later.
Yeah.
What has changed? What has changed?
Well, St. Maarten has changed dramatically. You remember in those days before, when I was, let's say, a kid growing up here, if something had to be done, all the commissioner had to do was write on a piece of paper, do this. And there was no legal look at it, no financial look at it or whatever. It just was done. St. Maarten these days has a strong legal organization, a strong financial organization. We have policymakers, we have specialists in all different areas. The change is dramatic within a few years. I was charged, among other things, with building the government civil servant apparatus and structure it in such a way that it could perform, like it should perform. So compared to the years before that, the change is day and night. And now ministers and politicians get advices, and the civil servants can say at a certain point, this is not wise to do. We recommend to do something else. While in the days gone by, that was not unheard of. These days, civil servants say, well, that's legally not correct. You shouldn't do it in that way because it's legally incorrect. If you want to do it, it should be done in a different fashion. You know, so the checks and balances in the system have increased tremendously.
And that is added to the bureaucracy too, that people are not accustomed to.
That is true. That is the consequence of it, is that the bureaucracy sometimes begins to take forms that you say, yes, but now it's going too far. That things can't get done speedily and on time because of so many steps, bureaucratic steps that have to be taken before you can get a decision taken and a decision executed. Yeah, we have to look at that. The Dutch themselves have gone through the same experience. I've lived in Holland for 32 years. They went through the same experience, a tremendous growth of the bureaucracy. And after a while, they themselves took measures to cut back on the bureaucracy because it became excessive. We have to look out that that doesn't become excessive in St. Maarten as well.
It appears that the Dutch believe that St. Maarten is not capable of governing itself.
Yeah. Well, I must say that must be what is driving the driving force behind the persistence in this regards. They have taken the reports, the report of the General Audit Chamber, the report of Richardson, the report of PwC, and said, see, these reports say that the whole community is corrupt. The government is corrupt from top to bottom and across the board. Now, I challenge you to go into any of those reports and come up with that sentence. It's not there. PwC, what they have done is did an investigation into the integrity architecture of the government. That means, how are the checks and balances in place, and are they being implemented? Are they being applied? And they have used examples of it not being applied, of that integrity breaches taking place, to prove that the system is not completely as it should be. The Witt-Sampson report has done that in a different fashion, in a different way, by looking at different aspects of it and saying, if you correct it this way, it would help bring more integrity into the function of the government, and it might prevent integrity breaches. In the end, an integrity breach is a decision of an individual. So integrity has to be between the ears, as the Dutch say. The person themselves has to be integer when governing, because it's just like laws. You're not allowed to steal, right? But there are always people out there who steal. You're not allowed to kill another person. There are still people out there who kill another person. And these are excessive forms of integrity breaches. In the end, individuals do these things, but what you should not do is make it easy for people to succumb to these kind of desires and out there. So that is why the architecture is important. Checks and balances, applying sanctions if there are integrity breaches is important, so that the people understand, no, this is not allowed and is not going to be accepted.
You know, they also don't like the idea of all politicians being jumpers. Now, in our local Harley, it means, you know, we have politicians that go on the political party list. They are elected or got elected by a number of votes of all the members of the party, and then they will leave that party and join up with another party, either as an individual or as a party. In most cases, in the last 4 years, as individuals, and then they call themselves independent members of parliament. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be even the people on St. Maarten, the general population, have an issue with that. Mm-hmm.
Well, that could be the case, but it is part of the system, and it's possible it's not illegal. Yeah? Right. Whether it's moral, correct, is a different issue, but it's part of the system, and the Dutch shouldn't have a problem with it. They have the same system. And in the history of the Dutch government, you will see coalitions being formed, governments fall, new coalitions being formed. You see members of the different parties in the Netherlands leave parties and have become independent as well. Only in the Netherlands, it's bigger. Yeah, you're talking of a bigger parliament, and just one or two individual fractions you would have in that sense. But it happens between parties. There's a coalition at this moment with VVD and PvdA. And before that, there were coalitions with D66. And at a certain point, a coalition was being supported by the PVV. You know, so it is not really new. What the Dutch perceive, their perception is that these individual jumpers are bought. And that is corruption. And their perception is that whenever an individual jumps, it is because he's being bought.
And that's not necessarily true.
That is not necessarily true. Not only that, that is a perception. We don't govern by perception. You govern, the governing by the rule of law. And it means you have to have substantiated facts to be able to make those kind of statements. You can have that feeling, but it doesn't mean it's correct, and you're not sure it's correct, so you cannot govern by perception. But that seems to be the art of the day-to-day, governing by perception. But I would like to say something fundamental about that, governing by perception. Perception of how Jews are by the Nazis led to the extermination of millions of people. Only because they were Jews, and only because in the perception certain things were associated and attributed to the Jews. We don't want to go down that road. Have we learned our lesson in history? Have we studied the Second World War? Have we seen what happened? And we don't even have to go back to the Second World War to learn that this is not the route to go. Today there's perceptions all over the place about people. Perceptions about foreigners. Perceptions about locals. We have to become more substantial in dealing, especially when we're dealing with government, especially when we're dealing with the rights of the people, because, in fact, a government is dealing with the fundamental rights of the people. So you can't just deal with that based on perception. It has to be more than that. It has to have substance.
Taking a look at the border control, immigration, a lot of people are saying that there's no immigration control. The last time you was here in this program, you said there's just no facility to hold people. What's going to happen? Because it's really getting out of hand. Unemployment is very high in this island among our young people. Mm-hmm. And every day, more and more people are entering this island to look for work, mainly on the Dutch side of St. Maarten. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that can be done to curb this situation?
Well, as I've reported in the Parliament, notwithstanding the fact that we have no facility holding facility at this moment, the amount of expulsions in the year 2014 was up as compared to the year 2013. So it isn't that the Immigration and Border Protection Services are not doing anything. And if you follow the news just the other day, you will hear that there's going to be a joint control action by not only the immigration services, but also by the economic control services and other services out there. So it is happening. The problem of not having a facility means that where you in the past you could carry out immense raids and hold tens of people at the same time for days because you had a facility to put them in, and then you could expel them as the seats became available on the planes. That possibility is limited today, but it's not going to stay that way. We are working very hard on improving the situation, and I've said before, to be able to do that, we first need to expand the prison in Point Blanche. There's a plan that was just presented to me to expand the prison at Point Blanche with 2 layers, in which it would be possible to take the prisoners from the Simpson Bay and put them up in the Point Blanche area. But not only that, we'll be able to segregate the young, mature people from 18 to 24 years from the more mature criminals, and give them the training and all kind of other aspects that they need according to the international norms that we have to comply with. Then the Simpson Bay, grenshospitium as we call it, border hostel, to hold persons, because you have to be, you see it this way, people who are illegal are not really criminals. They're just people looking for work like we used to do in the old time days when we weren't up here. Our people went to Anguilla. Anguillians came to St. Maarten. Our people went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our people went to the Dominican Republic. I believe we even have whole colonies in certain parts of the Dominican Republic. Our people went to Aruba, went to Curacao. And in those days, migration between the Caribbean islands was a normal thing, and you went there to work. Where there was work, you went, and you sent back home to your family, because sometimes in the place where you live, there was not sufficient work, and therefore not enough to be able to feed and support your family. So migration in that sense between the Caribbean nations is not something very strange to us. Things have changed dramatically because our economy has grown tremendously. Our economy after the 60s, 70s, 80s has exploded. We are a little economic wonder here in the Caribbean. And as a result of that, as I've said in Parliament, if you define a St. Maartener as somebody born here, then they only form 20% of the population. If you define a St. Maarten as somebody with a Dutch nationality, then we form about 49 to 50% of the population. But again, it still shows how large the other size of the population, is. And given the economic growth, it works as a magnet to attract people to the island to come and work, just like we were attracted to other islands when things were bad on St. Maarten. But yes, we have to get it under control. Yes, there are measures to put it under control. The immigration services has never been so large. I don't know if you remember the days when we were part of the Netherlands Antilles. What were we talking about? All we had was a small administrative unit. And it was up to the police, if they had time, to do anything about illegals. Now we have a whole organization that carries out controls and used to carry out major raids, and will do that in the near future as well.
Is Maarten paying its share in terms of for services provided by the Dutch Coast Guard?
We are paying our share in the Coast Guard. It is a substantial amount of money that we contribute every year to the Coast Guard. What we would like to see more is what results does that deliver to St. Maarten. There are two ways to enter the country illegally. You come on the plane and you overstay, which according to me is probably the most prevalent form of illegal entrance into the country. And then there's the possibility of entering our country through the beaches, because we have a great amount of beaches, and all of them are very accessible. They're not our rocky coast. It is beautiful beaches, and that is what we sell. That is our resource. That is our oil, as I said before. That's our goal. And we have beautiful beaches, but they can also be used in this fashion. And to close that off, we need a Coast Guard that operates 24/7. And I mean 24/7, 365, 56 days, 65 days a year. Then there's the issue of the French side, because if we close the gap on the Dutch side, you know what's going to happen? They're just going to move to the French side. And we need, therefore, to do that in close cooperation with French St. Maarten. And all these things are in development. The French part of the country are in the process of building up their resources to be able to deal with their part of the country. And our Coast Guard, like I say, we need the radar, because with the Coast Radar you can detect the movement of the ships. And that is not only important for illegal, but that's also important to detect drug transports. So, and then again, we are in between a number of islands. We have Anguilla, we have St. Bart's, we have Bonaire, Sable, and St. Eustatius. We are practically in the center of those groups of islands. So close cooperation is also needed with those islands.
Oral Gibbes live on call. Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
And also good evening to the Justice Minister.
Good evening there.
I'm just calling in regards of what he mentioned pertaining our great-grandfather, or my great-grandfather, for sure, worked in Santo Domingo, left St. Maarten, worked in Santo Domingo. And a lot of our great-grandparents, they went to all the other islands. But the comparisons with Santo Domingo and some of those islands, St. Maarten is so small, and we're already overpopulated, and there's not even jobs for not have to be born here, but our local people. And then when they have these flights that come, Cincelejo comes out of Colombia and Santo Domingo with so many people every day, these people comes in, and there are people there to one person to collect so many people. Oh, so this will never be regulated, because instead it gets better, it isn't getting worse. Good evening, that's all I have to say.
Well, to be honest, we are doing a tremendous job with the limited means that we have. Is it enough? No. Can we do more? Yes, and I think we should do more. And I agree with the lady. Our country is relatively small as compared to the Dominican Republic, but there were also islands that have been small where we went. A lot of our people went to Anguilla when Anguilla was the economic boom, and Anguilla smaller than St. Maarten. What I was just trying to do is just to sketch the history, but that doesn't justify us naturally today allowing our borders to be wide open so that in and everybody could come in, while our own population, at least a part of our population, are going hungry because they can't get a job. So I agree completely. That is one of the reasons why the controls are strict, why we have border, why you can't enter the country anymore officially without a passport, why some countries can enter the country without a visa. I don't know about the ton loads of Colombians, because Colombians can only enter the country at this moment with a visa. So you know, there are measures in place to control it as much as possible, and where there are gaps and holes in the system, we're gonna have to close those.
So I think it was Curacao was looking at having a change to that,
Yeah.
in terms of Colombians entering their territory, right? Did they ask Maarten to cooperate in that?
Yes, Maarten has been involved into that, and the reason for that is because Colombia is growing economically. It is therefore becoming a potential also area for where tourists could come from. Goods. It is a country that has produces a lot of goods at cheap prices. So it is for economic reasons we are also looking at Colombia.
Let me take a call here. Oral Gibbes Live caller. Hello. You there, caller? Hello. You want Oral Gibbes Live caller? Hello.
Good night, I'm going to say.
Good evening.
It's the Minister of Justice.
Good evening.
You know who's speaking?
Yes, if you was here, I would give you the Boy Scouts left hand shake.
Not only that, besides the Boy Scouts left hand shake, you know what your mother was to me?
I wouldn't remember that, but I'm just going to guess.
Let me
Yeah.
remind you if you don't know.
Tell me.
Your mother told me that, hey, remember, Dennis is your god brother, for I, Mabel Richardson,
Is your godmother.
your godmother.
Mhm.
And besides that, I'm not only your godmother, but I'm your cousin. So since you have forgotten that, let me remind you. And you definitely are found to be correct when you said there was a time that Angola was absolutely employing people from St. Maarten, but many people apparently might not have known about that. Take Sombrero Lighthouse, for example. There were St. Martiners that worked there. Take, for example, Dog Island, the Fonrumas, and those people, they actually, they were employing people there and so forth, and having Dog Island operated economically. And for the moment was one of those governors of St. Maarten.
Yep.
And you can go on and on. St. Maarten people truly, those that really are St. Martiners, they are not Anguillian eaters, and neither Anguillians are St. Maarten people eaters. You know, different. But I hate to say there are outsiders who have come into St. Maarten, onto this island, and are making, and advocating those type of troubles. Coming back to you to another thing.
Okay.
I told you that gun control is something to be looked into. You try to shake it off, but thank you for beating around the bush.
No, but gun control, I agree with you.
Okay.
Gun control, I agree absolutely with you. God, brother.
Oral Gibbes Live, your call. Hello.
Yes, how are you doing?
Good, I'm fine, thanks. Go ahead.
Good.
You have a question for the Minister of Justice?
Not actually a question, but actually, what do you call it? Let me put it this way. a remark I want to make
Okay.
as a citizen of St. Maarten.
Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Oral Gibbes and
Good evening, sir.
Mr. Richardson.
Good evening.
I want to have a question, but I'd like to make a remark because pertaining to this hot issue of the Dutch intervention, I think we should not look at it as it is now. We should look back up and see exactly how we reached in this situation. Because in the past we had government that lacked what you call open and transparent governance and accountability, and government which has didn't consider the principles and integrity and democracy of the country. And as a consequence, we had all kind of reports that came up with that bad performance. We had reports such as Bakker's report, Poirier report, Suzurema report, and you had many more other reports. And you also had politicians that were prosecuted and incarcerated. And from that time to now, we haven't learned one lesson. Nothing we have learned, because it repeats itself again. From 1954 to 2015, 61 years, you had the opportunity to give us proper governance. You had the opportunity to fight for integrity. You did nothing. In fact, many of us, we just benefit from it. And all of a sudden, since the higher authority decided they had enough, then we start pointing fingers. We're busy doing it, and we're going to, the government is going to put what you call those things in place, and they're going to pass them to Parliament. But when you look in Parliament, you have certain people too who have just been what you call accused and condemned. And they're the same people who are going to decide exactly if those laws will be what you call implemented or it will be fixed in what fashion. And this is what the Dutch has again, because you have people inside here that violate the same laws that they want to institute. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, what can I say? One individual or two individuals in themselves are not the persons who establish the laws. You need a majority in Parliament to be able to establish a law. And then, as far as that is concerned, the other aspect of it is that you have to look at what we are doing and then judge it based on its content. The content, whether in the sense of whether the institution that is supposed to do the integrity investigations into integrity breaches, whether it is an independent organization, yes or not, whether the way we are putting it together makes it independent, yes or no. That is one. But there's also one important thing that we need to learn, maybe as a country, and playing into what the gentleman just said, is we cannot become psychologically recolonized in the sense that for everything that we do wrong, we have to depend on the Netherlands to do it. When are we going to grow up and do it ourselves? We need to do it ourselves. We need to give those people in our community who want to make our country the best thing on earth, give them the opportunity to do the right thing. That way we become the role models for the young ones who are going to come up again and doing the right thing. But if everything that is wrong within our country, we have to psychologically think, oh yeah, the Dutch has got to save us, then I don't know if we really deserve to be a country.
And we're taking calls of 5422170. You're on live caller. Hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night. How are you doing?
If our own politicians don't want to stop the corruption and don't want to change, who then is going to do it, Mr. Minister? Then we have to look for the Dutch to do it. If you were asking there what the Dutch want, the Dutch want the corruption to stop because corruption has been growing very large. So the reason why they want to impose their own integrity, because now our own politicians is not doing it. So the Dutch has a right now to come in and do it. Because so long it's been going on and they are doing nothing, absolutely nothing. So the Dutch is right to come in and do it because they are not going to do it. Anyway, good night.
All right.
This is exactly what I mean. We have so little feeling of our capabilities to do the right thing that yes, we then have to look elsewhere for somebody else to do it for us. And that is my opinion sad, because I don't believe that everybody and every politician is corrupt. I don't believe that everybody in St. Maarten is corrupt. I believe there are good people in St. Maarten and there are bad people in St. Maarten. It's up to the good people to put a stop to the things that are going wrong. And we have to do it ourselves, or else we're going to have the Dutch here forever, right? If we can't do it ourselves, then they have to come in, I agree, and they'll be here forever, because when will we ever have grown up and matured so far that we ourselves do what is necessary and do the right thing? We have to start, and today is the best day to start.
You know, there was screening of ministers, and the Dutch government called for more stringent measures in terms of how the screening was conducted for incoming ministers. There's still a vacancy for the Ministry Vromi and also for the Ministry of Health and Labor Affairs.
Correct.
And that's taking quite long. I don't think it's right and fair for me to ask you a question, but I want to ask in terms of the screening, because the population of this island, they're never aware of what's involved in the screening. But what we did learn is that we heard all kinds of stories and rumors about different candidates that were up for minister. Some never made it. And I think it's unfair for people if you want this island to improve, if you want the best of the best, and you're going to have a screening process, which is supposed to be secretive. And before it's over, most of the island know already what's taking place. It's going to hurt this island in the long run.
Well, it's not fair to the people who make themselves vulnerable for the position to have their private business all over the place. That is clear. That is not the case. It doesn't happen in any other country either. I mean, as far as I know, it doesn't happen in the Netherlands. Either. And I could imagine that it might have an effect of certain people being very reserved as whether they would make themselves vulnerable in that regard. But we have to continue, and we have to screen the persons who are becoming ministers to ensure as much as possible that we have the right people in the right place.
Okay. Oral Gibbes live on caller. Hello. There. But I think people are scared. You know, it's like one person was saying, you know, you ask a person to become a minister, and I had one guy here who was saying they're thinking you're not their friend. Let me take this call for you. Oral Gibbes live on caller. Hello. You're on live caller. Hello. You're on the air live. Well, I guess that was a potential minister that backed up. But I think, it really becomes an issue because when you turn on your TV, and I'm sure even in Holland, the Dutch government and the Secret Service, they watch this show, and they watch other calling shows, and they can hear people screaming, and they think, well, you know what? That's the majority of St. Maarten. It's not necessarily true. But we have a cultural problem because we as St. Maarteners interpret integrity different than people in Holland. And that's all over, right? Integrity is different for different people in a cultural context. I don't know what you...
Well, what I would say about this, in a conversation that I had with Mr. Plastek, I said, if you take the word family, and I say you apply it in Holland, you say family shouldn't, give each other's family things. I say in the Netherlands that would be confined to your father, your mother, your brothers, and your sisters. In St. Maarten, nobody would get anything because for us, family goes, to the extreme. In a form of relationship, and we consider that family. And we also consider family loyalty an important aspect. And that makes it sometimes difficult because sometimes you have to take measures against your family that you don't really would like to do, but because it's wrong, you have to tell your family it's wrong. You can't do that. We're a small community, and therefore we know each other. And today I might be mad at you, but tomorrow I might need you for something else. So that kind of limits to a degree, and that's why you have in our community that people are really not very confrontational. In the Netherlands, you can be very confrontational. I don't know who you are, never met you before, don't care either. If you do something wrong, I'll bash you. And it doesn't have any direct consequences because it's not family. I don't know you. You're not a friend. You're not in my circles. The country is too big for that. But that alone, the definition of family, is a cultural aspect. In Holland, it means something different than in St. Maarten.
Another thing is that I arrived from Holland. I used to ride a bike in Holland. I used to live in a 2x4 and I had a very good education. And now I'm seeing, wow, I'm seeing these black people. I hate to use this word, but I have to. I'm seeing these black people and they're living in houses, $500,000, $1 million. Where did they get the money from?
Yep. Another cultural difference. I know from small, our people, their way of saving really was investing in their home. And these palaces, as sometimes the Dutch think, were not built from one day to the next with a bunch of money ill-gotten somewhere. In fact, it is often over years that people have built their homes to the degree that they are today. They build it piece by piece. Today, you can still walk around and see some houses with the steel spile still sticking out for the next elevation on their home. That is how it has gone. But if you don't know that, you come and you look and you say, but how could that civil servant have gotten that house? The house is so immense and large. Have no clue how the persons got there. And like I say, perception. You cannot govern by perception. If you govern the St. Maarten people by perception, yes, you will think everybody is corrupt because where you all get those beautiful houses from, with our income like that. But we don't have what they have in Holland. You can get loans in Holland for 30, 40 years at reasonable interest rates. Yeah. So it's difficult.
It's a cultural clash in a way.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Richardson, we're just about out of time. Anything you want to add in closing?
And in closing, what the person just said to me really hit me very, very hard. You cannot judge everybody by the ill deeds of the one or the two or the three. You have to judge people based on what they do, their performance. Not only on what they say, but also what they do. And it is unfair to the great number of good people on this island who have worked hard, have not been corrupt, have now had no ill gains to be where they are today, to be seen as corrupt because of the few who are corrupt in our community, who do things in the wrong fashion. It is not right towards the people. It is also not good for your self-esteem, because the person who says all the others are corrupt, why are you exempt? Why are you exempt? You're part of that community as well. So you can't do that. That is, in fact, a form of discrimination, and we shouldn't do it. We should have more confidence in our people. They are very good people on this island. What we should do is give them a chance instead of cutting them down, which we also do. We cut a lot of our good people down. And our people are never good enough. And that's wrong also.
Okay. Well, Mr. Richardson, I want to thank you for being my guest, and thanks for coming, and much success.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for now. I'll see you next time.